All right, let's just jump right into this explainer, because today we are completely flipping how you think about personal finance. We're going to pull out some timeless principles, but instead of getting bogged down in the technical math of investing, we are focusing entirely on the psychology of money.
And to start, here's kind of a crazy paradox for you. Why do incredibly brilliant people so often end up totally broke, while someone like Ronald Read, who was literally a humble janitor, was able to quietly amass an $8 million fortune? Well, the secret isn't raw intelligence, and it definitely isn't some secret Wall Street spreadsheet. It all comes down to behavior.
Actually, Nassim Taleb hit the nail on the head with this. He says, the world is split between people who don't know how to start making money and people who don't know when to stop making money. It's a huge shift in perspective, right? Because succeeding with money isn't just about the grind of accumulating it, it's really about mastering the psychology of knowing when enough is truly enough.
Which brings us to Section 1, Rich versus Wealth.
So here's a crucial point. Being rich and being wealthy are not the same thing at all. Being rich is highly visible. It's the Ferraris, the huge houses, the designer clothes, a massive current income. When you see someone driving a $100,000 car, you know they're rich. Or, well, at least you know they just spent $100,000. But wealth? Wealth is completely hidden. It's the unspent money. It's those untouched index funds sitting in the background. It is the financial flexibility and independence that you literally cannot see.
And this leads into what author Morgan Housel calls the valet driver paradox. See, back when he used to work as a valet at a five-star hotel in LA, he noticed something fascinating. When someone drove up in a flashy Ferrari or a Rolls-Royce, nobody ever looked at the driver and thought, wow, that guy is so cool. Instead, the onlookers just imagined themselves driving the car, thinking, if they had it, people would admire them. It's a total disconnect. People buy luxury items to get respect, but everyone else just uses those exact items to fantasize about their own respect.
Which gives us a massive takeaway here. The most valuable financial skill that anybody can have is not needing to impress other people. If you can conquer that urge to show off, it is the equivalent of adding billions of dollars of unseen assets to your personal balance sheet. It completely stops lifestyle inflation from eating away at your hidden wealth.
All right, moving on to Section 2, the expectation gap.
Think about this incredibly simple but just deeply profound formula. Happiness equals reality minus expectations. So if you're super ambitious and your income goes up, but your expectations rise even faster than your income, you are always going to feel broke. Literally, if you make $1 billion, but you fully expected to make 1.1 billion, your brain registers that as a complete failure.
To really ground this, think of the Stephen Hawking reality check. The late, brilliant physicist suffered from a devastating motor neuron disease that left him totally paralyzed. And yet, in an interview before he died, he said his life was amazing and he was incredibly happy. Why? He explained that his expectations were reduced to zero at age 21 when he got that diagnosis. Every single day since then was just a massive bonus. It's a stark reminder that managing your expectations is way more in your control than trying to manage all your external circumstances.
And when we zoom out and apply this to society at large, a pretty stark contrast emerges. Today, the average American household, even adjusted for inflation, makes twice as much money as they did back in the 1950s. We're richer, we have better medical care, smartphones, endless comforts. Yet societal happiness is measurably lower today. Why is that? Because as society got richer, our neighbors got richer too. The goalposts just kept moving. We're constantly comparing ourselves, and that just endlessly widens that expectation gap.
Okay, Section 3. Save pessimistically, invest optimistically.
A huge chunk of financial behavior comes down to how we handle uncertainty. Financial advisor Carl Richards summed this up perfectly. He said, risk is what's left over when you think you've thought of everything. We can plan all we want for recessions or market dips, but the biggest financial shocks, think 9/11, the 2008 crash, a sudden global pandemic, they're always the ones nobody saw coming. And they do the most damage precisely because they're complete surprises.
Morgan Housel actually learned this as a teenager in a really visceral, tragic way. He and two of his best friends were out of bounds skiing. They triggered a small avalanche, survived it, and hiked out. His friends decided they were going to go back up for a second run, but Housel decided, pretty much on a whim, to just drive his truck down and pick them up at the bottom instead. His friends never made it. They were killed in a massive second avalanche. It was a purely random, uncalculated decision that saved his life. And the takeaway here isn't just about the tragedy, it's about the reality that life literally hangs by a thread. Forecasting the future is completely impossible, which means financial preparedness isn't just a good idea, it's absolutely essential.
To survive a world that's unpredictable, you need a solid structure. Think of something like the bucket strategy that groups like Accardi Financial use. Step 1 is your short-term pessimistic cash bucket. You accept zero or really low returns here because this is your emergency survival fund. It's the buffer that protects you from the unpredictable stuff. Step 2 is your middle ground fund. And then step 3, that's your long-term, highly optimistic index investment bucket. Because over the very long haul, like 15 years or more, the market historically always goes up. The whole point is, you save like a complete pessimist to survive the short-term panic, so you can confidently invest like a giddy optimist for the long term.
And if you want proof of long-term optimism, consider this totally mind-blowing statistic. 99% of Warren Buffett's vast wealth was accumulated after his 60th birthday. Seriously, 99%. Why does that matter? Because it proves that endurance, patience, and the magic of compounding matter so much more than picking the exact right stock or perfectly timing the market. If you can just manage your behavior and stay in the game without being forced to sell during a crisis, time does all the heavy lifting for you.
This brings us to Section 4, the housing dilemma. Now there's this massive societal pressure out there telling you that you absolutely must buy a home to be financially successful. But before you buy into that, consider this quote. Renting is throwing your money away is the kind of thing said by a guy who has never had to replace the roof on a house he owns.
The crucial point here is that we really need to impartially compare these two paths. They both have very different realities. Renting offers immense financial flexibility. It gives you the mobility to move across the country for a better job opportunity. And honestly, if you diligently invest the difference in cost, it can potentially lead to a much higher net worth. On the flip side, homeownership provides incredible emotional stability and a rock-solid family base. But mathematically speaking, historically, adjusted for inflation, real home prices are largely flat, all while bringing incredibly high maintenance costs. A house is often a phenomenal emotional investment for sure, but historically, it's kind of a mediocre financial one. Neither choice is universally right or wrong. It's entirely about what behaviors, goals, and lifestyle fit you personally.
And finally, Section 5, the ultimate currency, freedom.
Let's look at what we'll call the high-earning, low-autonomy trap. Picture a highly paid CEO making, say, $30 million a year. On paper, incredibly successful. But their calendar is entirely controlled by other people. They're constantly flying across the world on a moment's notice, totally exhausted. Studies actually show that a lack of autonomy and control over your own day causes severe physiological stress and even cardiovascular issues. So high income absolutely does not equal freedom if you don't control your time, which really reveals the true purpose of savings. Every single dollar you save isn't just, money sitting idle in a bank account. It is literally buying a piece of your future back. It buys you the ability to choose where you live, to work for who you want, to survive an illness without facing financial ruin, and to completely control your daily schedule. Think of an ER doctor working grueling, tragic shifts for 20 years. Because he lived below his means and consistently saved, the very second he felt completely burnt out, he could just walk away. His savings bought him his life back.
So if there's one thing you take away from this entire explainer, it's perfectly encapsulated by this quote from the late, great Charlie Munger. He simply said, "I never wanted to become rich, I just wanted to become independent." And that right there is the ultimate paradigm shift. Money is not a tool to buy shiny objects just to show off to strangers. It is the ultimate tool to purchase your own autonomy.
Which leaves us with one final, incredibly important question for you to consider today. When you look closely at your own financial habits, are you buying things to earn the fleeting respect of others, or are you strategically buying your own freedom? Take a moment to really think about that, and how just a simple shift in your psychology might completely change the entire trajectory of your life. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.